All right, folks, welcome back for the commercial break. So often when you go to Just the News, there's an amazing story about what's going on in Florida. It is ground zero for the states' rights movement, for restoring common sense to public policy, whether it's blocking funds that have an ESG agenda in the financial space or blocking critical race theory from being taught to your children. Our next guest is the newly minted Republican nominee for the House seat in Florida's 9th District, Scotty Moore. Scotty, great to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be on the show. Love being on here with you, Mr. Solomon, and also welcome to all the viewers. Love being able to address and connect with your viewership.
Yeah, you've got so much going on, and you're in an exciting district. Maybe in another year, people won't think Florida 9's in play. This year, it's in play. The Biden agenda, the extreme agenda of some of the liberal side of the Democratic Party is on trial in this election. And Darren Soto, a Democrat, popular among Puerto Ricans in Florida, he's got more of a record than most Americans know of just kind of hanging in there with the far left and Joe Biden. Tell us a little bit how that becomes an issue in the fall election.
Yeah, you're right. I think most Americans right now are really concerned about what's happening at their home with their kids, their pocketbooks, the economy, gas prices, what's happening around the world with Afghanistan that happened a year ago. Americans were left behind enemy lines there. Yeah. Americans were left at the airport. Soldiers died. We can't forget about that. That was a year ago, but even with Ukraine and our weakness around the world. And so you got the border, and even though Florida is not technically a border state, every state's a border state this year because we're looking at the effects of everything that's happening. And so I think Americans, and that includes Congressional District 9, are very, very concerned with what's happening in our everyday lives. And again, front and center, it's kids. Unfortunately, they're bringing kids and indoctrination kids and even parents not having the right to speak up and defend. And so Darren Soto votes 100% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. And so he is absolutely complicit with the mess we're in. And that's what we're saying. And by the way, he's not really that well known here. He just has run and has a Puerto Rican last name. But most people don't know Darren Soto. And the party is the one who supports him. And I think a lot of people are looking for change now.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable. I think a lot of folks who've been in office for maybe not have been vetted for the votes they've taken, not have been vetted for the positions they've taken, and where they might have been even 3-4 years ago, and now may have moved because the Democratic Party has moved so much further to the left. What are the most important things you want voters in Florida, voters around the country, donors to know about Darren Soto's record that they may not know about?
Yeah, listen, Darren Soto has been wrong on every issue, whether it's voting for the pushing forward a radical agenda or protecting the transgender and pushing forward a radical gender fluidity thing that Governor DeSantis, by the way, stood up and said, no, it's not going to happen here. And it became a nationwide debate. Disney got involved, even global, if you ask me, around that and stuff. So if you look at his voting record, he has been wrong on all of that. And it's affecting, parents right now are trying to decide whether or not they pay for their kids' school lunch, the school supplies, the gas in their car, the mortgage, the out-of-control spending and supply chain crisis that we're in, that we're not having good leadership. I mean, this is affecting everyday Americans.
And the great outdoors.
It's affecting
That's
kids.
Kentucky.
So that's what people need to understand is they may not be investigating and looking too deeply, but if they don't like the situation they're in, the reason why is because Pelosi has had a wicked, crazy agenda, and Darren Soto has been in step with her.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's sort of escaped scrutiny. And you look at Hispanic voters, I think over the last few years, clearly been more in the Democratic bloc traditionally. But the more that the left moves further left, the more that they start targeting children with whether it's transgender ideology or critical race theory, it seems like that bond between the Democratic Party and Latino voters is starting to fray, break, move towards the Republican Party. Do you think that will happen in this district? It's key, I think, to watch that dynamic across the country. But in this district, which has a pretty large Puerto Rican population, this could be a very important dynamic for you, isn't it?
Yes. Well, the Democrats have been wrong on every issue, and that's including COVID, the COVID vaccine, the mandates, losing jobs. If we had not had Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida would be in a very, very difficult, dangerous situation, similar to probably California, Michigan, New York. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, but we have had Governor DeSantis in there, but they were trying to push forward in that, and I believe many in the Hispanic community are like all Americans. We're all Americans. And so we're concerned about our jobs. We're concerned about losing our jobs based on what the government believes we should do. And we don't have the freedoms anymore that we should be able to choose that. And also, we are 100% pro-life. I believe many in the Hispanic culture are pro-life and not pro-death, which is pro-killing babies. And, a lot of people in this community are really wanting to be able to say, if they go issue by issue, they really see that they lean more on the conservative side than in the Democrat side. And that's being highlighted more than ever with what's happening in the radical attack and agenda that's happening, not just with our kids, absolutely with our kids, but also with taking away our jobs, taking away our freedoms, pushing a vaccine that maybe some of us don't want to take. And if you want to take it, that's fine. That's why we live in the United States of America. We have freedoms in that. But pushing an agenda and losing your job, that's where it's really dangerous. And so the choice could not be more clear right now between new leadership, new direction, Scotty Moore, and Darren Soto, who votes 100% of the time with Pelosi on that.
Yeah, and Soto's going to be on a ticket, a Democratic ticket in Florida that has some interesting characters. Charlie Crist, former Republican, turns Democrat. He picks a former teachers union figure, Carla Hernandez Matz. These teachers unions have been at the forefront of some of this radical ideology. And also, they were the unions that didn't want students to come back from COVID very quickly. How big an issue will that become in this election? Now you have someone that kind of has that whole COVID teaching thing in the middle of the ticket. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that's absolutely going to be front and center. But by the way, let's not forget that before Charlie Crist was a Democrat, he was an independent. He's a shapeshifter depending on whatever fits best for his. Right. So he's got to be in every party he can. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a lot, where he was one, but then he is other because he saw the writing on the wall, and then he shifted into another, and then so he has lost total credibility right now, and he keeps saying whatever, but that's really the party that we're fighting against right now. The Democrat Party has lost credibility. They changed the definition, whether it's a woman, whether it's building the wall. They're not building the wall. They're just kind of filling in the wall. They've changed the definition on recession. And they're also changing the reality of like, hey, they're trying to sell you a bill of goods that this is good for you, when really what they're pushing forward in schools is anti-American rhetoric, and it's pushing forward a wicked agenda. And the American parents are seeing this. They're rising up and speaking against it. And what does the Biden administration do? They label them as domestic terrorists. This will absolutely be front and center. And I sure hope the American people pay attention and know what's happening, and don't forget the crazy reality that we have fought for. Thankfully, we have Governor DeSantis who has protected our kids. And that's absolutely going to be on the ballot this November.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Florida is the model for those parents who think they want government doing a better job protecting their children in school, critical race theory, transgenderism, highly sexualized content in K through 5. What the heck's that about? So Florida's got a great model. You're going to Congress if you win this election. What is the lessons from Florida and other states perhaps that Congress needs to adopt so that there is a federal nationwide approach to this? Or do you think it should be state by state? Do you like the federalism approach, or do you like the federal approach?
Yeah, right. Well, what I believe is something that's an old statement, but a great statement from the great orator Ronald Reagan, which says, "I'm here from the government and I'm here to help." And so the government gets in the way when they try to do things. And so let's bring back the 10th Amendment, where it's states' rights. Let's bring it back and allow the states to lead well. Governor DeSantis has been doing that. When you have this federal overreach, which, by the way, we've seen with the DOJ and the FBI pushing forward, not just in this crazy reality that they did with Mar-a-Lago and a former president and Donald J. Trump, but also with spying on Americans. And what about the CDC, NIH, Fauci, so many other agencies, the IRS, 87,000 new IRS agents coming after everyday Americans, by the way, probably the majority of 200,000 in income and below. So we have a government that is out of control. There's an administrative state, unelected bureaucrats who are trying to take away freedoms, and we need to bring it back to the states and shrink our government. It is too out of control. There's too much power-hungry people, and that is absolutely true in the education realm, along with the other realms, which is the IRS, CDC, NIH, the DOJ. There's just too much power and too much out of control federal government.
It's so interesting to take a look at the debate in the states, and you're starting, I think, to see some of the best ideas that are going to bubble up to the federal side, being born in the states, being practiced in the states, getting tested in the states, getting perfected in the states. It seems as though we're in an extraordinary era of revival of federalism, which was so important to our founding fathers. They didn't want a large central federal government. They wanted states to have the ability to chart their way. Are you encouraged by the fact that federalism is alive and well in America right now?
Yes. I mean, we are a constitutional republic, and we must never forget that it's we the people. We the people do have a voice, and we can make a difference in the ballot, and we should and we ought to. And that also includes election integrity and making sure we're holding our government accountable, which, by the way, has not been done. The thing that I say often, and I really believe, is what good is it to have checks and balances built into our system if we don't employ and use said checks and balances? They're there for a reason. We need to hold our government in check. And I really do believe there is a revival in here. But here's the question. Are we willing to stay the course and keep pushing and keep speaking up and go and see this full all the way through? And that's what I would like to see. There is a clear pushback on this, and so we'll see how this plays out. But I believe people are waking up, and we must continue this fight. States' rights still are alive. The federal government exists because of the states and not the other way around. States are paramount and very important to our government and the success of the United States of America.
Yeah, so it's an important part of the development in our country is watching everyday grassroots people get to the states, get things done, and then maybe one day they'll get to the federal level. As you prepare for the fall election, you've got some good fundraising going on. You've got some momentum coming out of the Republican primaries. What's the key for you as you try to make the deal with voters and get sent to Washington? What do you want voters to know you're going to do when you get to Washington?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said it a lot of times, which is holding our government accountable. I think what's really important to know is that we are a government, I believe, of representing of the people, and we've lost touch. Sometimes it feels like the government has become people who are elite or who have significant wealth. And I came from a nonprofit. I worked for Campus Crusade for Christ for over 20 years. We had to raise our own funds. And so I do not, people don't last for over 20 years in a Christian nonprofit, nor do they raise their funds for over 20 years. And they don't do it for the money. They do it for the mission. And the mission matters. And I think we need to get people who have been in the communities, have been working, teaching leadership development. That's what I've been doing. By the way, I lived in Brazil for 6 years. I speak Portuguese. I also traveled around South America. I've been to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Santa Cruz, Bolivia, and Quito, Ecuador. And so I also speak Espanol también. And so the thing is after living in Brazil, my wife's Brazilian. We lived there for 19 years. I lived there for 6 years. We've been married for 19 years. 16 years ago, we came here to the U.S. and she became a U.S. citizen legally, by the way. So I've been through that process as well. Legal immigration. Immigration is important, but legal immigration. And so I've seen what it's like to live outside of the U.S. I've traveled around. I've been through the legal immigration process. And so, I'm a unique type of person who's running, and I believe most people want to see that type of representation, who have tried to figure out and know what it's like to live with everyday Americans and figure out how we're going to pay for this stuff, go to the grocery store. That's what I bring to Washington, D.C. And I believe we're on a mission, and people are responding to that mission. And the new mission is to help save America. We're going to take back the House, John. We're going to fire Pelosi, and we're going to save America. That's what we're doing, and people are responding, and they want that.
How do folks stay in touch, Scotty, with what you're doing? If they want to get involved or inspired by what they hear, what's the best way for them to stay in touch with what you're doing?
Absolutely. Would love for you all to follow me on social media, Scotty Moore for Congress, on my Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can go to ScottyMooreForCongress.com. That's Scotty with a Y, Moore, for Congress.com. So that's my website. We're doing videos every day, so you can hear my voice. You can see me. I'm going everywhere. You'll see that there's not going to be another candidate who's working harder than Scotty Moore. I'm going to earn your vote, your respect. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Reach out. I've got my phone number on there, my email. We want to stay in touch with you. And by the way, if you can't vote for me, I understand. You can still help me get elected, because not all candidates are alike, and that's why it's so important. We're flipping the seat from blue to red. And so you guys may be in Arizona or Montana or Minnesota or Texas or New York or even California. It matters to flip this seat from blue to red, and we need your help. And so there's a ton of momentum and energy. Help us take back the House, fire Pelosi, and save America.
Wow. It's going to be a big election. A lot of people watching this as a bellwether race. And a few years ago, I don't think Florida 9 would be considered a bellwether race. So a lot of people excited about this. Scotty, thanks for joining us. We wish you luck in the fall. Definitely going to get you back on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you and your viewers. I really believe this is going to be a historic election. And by the way, we have President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, and Senator Cruz on Team Scotty and looking for more people. So there's tons of momentum.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There is. There's a lot of momentum. That's what people are watching. Thanks again for joining us, Scotty. Great to have you on today.
God bless you. Thank you, sir.
You as well. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.